I build software for a living. I take messy, complicated problems and break them down into clean, logical pieces until they fit together. There is a beauty to it, the way everything is connected, the way one wrong character in a block of code can bring the whole system down. I have spent my entire adult life learning how to fix things, but I never learned how to fix myself. I work at a mid-sized tech company downtown, the kind with exposed brick walls, kombucha on tap, and a foosball table nobody has time to use. My job title is Senior Backend Engineer, which means I spend most of my day staring at a dark screen full of green text while the junior developers ask me questions about why their code does not work. I am good at it. I have been doing it for 8 years, and somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like an imposter and started believing I actually belonged. My apartment is a one-bedroom on the 4th floor of a building with an elevator that breaks more often than it works. I have a couch I bought off Craigslist, a coffee table I built myself out of reclaimed wood, and a bookshelf full of programming manuals and novels I keep meaning to finish. It is not much, but it is mine. The morning I ran into Derek, I was running late. I had stayed up until 2 in the morning debugging a memory leak in the new deployment pipeline, and my alarm had gone off 40 minutes after I was supposed to be awake. I threw on jeans and a hoodie, skipped the shower, and practically ran to the coffee shop 3 blocks from my office, the one where they know my order and usually have it ready before I reach the counter. I was standing at the counter, waiting for my black coffee with an extra shot, when I heard someone say my name. It was not the way people normally say it. It was the way people say it when they are testing whether it sounds familiar. I turned around, already knowing somehow, and there he was. Derek looked different. Not older, exactly, but softer. The sharp angles of his jaw had filled out. His hair was shorter, neat, the kind of haircut you get when you have a job that requires you to look respectable. He was wearing a button-up shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and he had a wedding ring on his left hand. He looked normal. He looked happy. I had not seen him since we were 15 years old. "Hey, Marcus," he said, and he was smiling. I did not remember the last time he had smiled at me. I did not remember him ever smiling at me. "Is that really you?" My first instinct was to pretend I did not recognize him, to say sorry, wrong person, and walk out the door. But my mouth had already said his name, and his face had already lit up, and there was no one saying it. I said, "Hey, Derek." It came out flat, neutral, the way I talk to strangers on the elevator. He walked over and shook my hand. His grip was firm, but not aggressive. He said he could not believe it had been so long. He asked me what I was doing these days. He said I looked great, like I had really grown into myself. I stood there, holding my coffee cup, and I felt my brain splitting into 2 halves. One half was having a perfectly normal conversation with an old acquaintance. The other half was still in middle school, still 14, still trying to figure out why this guy hated me so much. The bullying started in 7th grade. I do not remember what triggered it. Maybe nothing did. Maybe Derek just saw me as an easy target. I was skinny. I wore glasses. I did not know how to talk to people without sounding like I was reading from a script. I had spent most of elementary school being invisible, which was fine by me. But in middle school, Derek made sure everyone knew my name. He called me names in the hallway. He knocked my books out of my hands in the cafeteria. He followed me home one time, not threatening me, just walking behind me for 6 blocks. Close enough that I could hear his footsteps, far enough that I could not prove anything. I told my mom I was fine. I told my teachers it was no big deal. I told myself it would stop if I just ignored it. It did not stop. It got worse. There was a day in 8th grade that I have replayed in my head 1,000 times. It was February. I remember because we had just gotten a snow day the week before, and I was still hoping for another one. I was walking to my locker before first period when Derek grabbed me by the back of my jacket and shoved me into the row of lockers. The metal edge caught me right below my ribs, and for a second I could not breathe. He told me I was nothing. He told me nobody liked me. He told me I should do everyone a favor and disappear. I did not fight back. I did not say a word. I just stood there against the lockers with my hands at my sides while he walked away. A teacher saw the whole thing from the end of the hall and did nothing. That was 17 years ago, and here he was, standing in front of me in a coffee shop, asking me if I had kept up with anyone from our class. He does not remember, I realized. He has no idea. I thought about all the nights I spent lying awake, imagining what I would say if I ever saw him again. I rehearsed speeches in the shower. I wrote entire monologues in my head during long commutes. I was going to tell him exactly what he did to me, every single detail, and then I was going to walk away and leave him standing there with the weight of it. But I did not say any of that. I said, "Yeah, I saw Kevin Johnson at a conference a few years back. He sells insurance now." Derek laughed. Kevin was selling insurance? That was hilarious, he said, because Kevin used to say he was going to be a rock star. We talked for another 2 minutes. He told me he worked in logistics. He had gotten married 4 years ago and had a 2-year-old daughter. He said he had moved back to the area after college and never left. He asked if I had kids. I said no. He asked if I was married. I said no. He looked at me for a second longer than felt comfortable, and then he said something I did not expect. "Hey, I know I was kind of a jerk back then. I was going through some stuff at home. I hope I did not make things too hard for you." I felt something crack open in my chest. The phrase "kind of a jerk." I thought about the day he pushed me into the lockers. I thought about the year I spent eating lunch in the bathroom because I was too scared to sit in the cafeteria. I thought about the panic attacks I started having in high school, the ones that followed me into college, the ones that still show up uninvited when I am stressed or tired or alone with my thoughts. "Kind of a jerk." I said it was a long time ago. He nodded and said he was glad I was doing well. He told me to take care of myself. Then he picked up his latte and walked out the door. I stood at the counter for a full minute after he left, holding my coffee, not moving. The barista asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. I was not fine. I sat down at a table by the window and stared at the door he had walked through. I tried to feel something specific, anger or relief or catharsis. But all I felt was the same hollow ache I had been carrying around for 17 years, like a bruise that never healed, just stopped hurting enough to ignore. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my boss asking if I had seen the latest deployment logs. I typed back that I was on my way. I did not go to the office. I walked to the river instead, the one that runs through the middle of the city, and I sat on a bench and watched the water move past until my hands stopped shaking. I thought about my brother, Mike. He had texted me the night before asking for money. It was the third time in 2 months. He was 19, a sophomore at the state university, and he was failing 3 of his 4 classes. My mom had called me crying last week, saying she did not know what to do with him, that he was staying out all night and skipping exams, and that she had found a bag of what looked like marijuana in his backpack. I told her I would talk to him. I had not called him yet. I had been putting it off because every time I talked to my brother, I saw myself at his age, scared and angry and pretending I was fine. I wanted to tell him that the choices he made now would stick to him for years. But I knew that was not what he needed to hear. He needed someone to tell him it was going to be okay. I did not know if I believed that myself. My girlfriend at the time was a woman named Amara. We had been together for 8 months, and she was the first person I had dated seriously since college. She was a photographer, the kind of person who saw beauty in everything, including me. She told me I was too hard on myself. She told me I needed to stop carrying the past around like it was my responsibility. She wanted me to meet her parents that weekend. She had asked me twice already, and I had found excuses both times. The truth was, I was scared. Not of her parents. Of what it meant. Meeting parents meant this was real. It meant she was expecting something from me that I was not sure I knew how to give. I called her from the bench by the river. She answered on the second ring. "Hey," she said. "You sound weird. Are you okay?" I said I was fine. I asked her what she was doing for lunch. She paused. She knew me well enough to know that I did not call her in the middle of the workday to make small talk. "What happened?" she asked. I did not want to tell her. I did not want to explain who Derek was, or what he had done, or why it still mattered. I did not want her to see the version of me that still got nervous when someone walked too close behind me, the version that still checked exits when he walked into a room. I said, I ran into someone from my past. It just threw me off. She asked if I wanted to talk about it. I said, not right now. She said, okay, I will be home at 6. I will pick up Thai food on the way. I said, thank you. She said, you are allowed to not be okay, Marcus. I hung up and sat there for another 10 minutes, watching the river, trying to figure out why I felt so broken over a 5-minute conversation with a man I had not seen in 17 years. The answer came to me slowly, the way it always does when I stop trying to force it. I was not upset because Derek did not apologize properly. I was upset because I had built my entire life around the idea that one day I would get to confront him. I had used that fantasy as fuel. Every time I succeeded at something, every time I proved someone wrong, part of me was doing it for my 14-year-old self, the kid who stood against the lockers and did not fight back. And now that kid was never going to get his moment. Because Derek had already moved on. He had already forgotten. He was not carrying the weight of what happened. I was carrying it alone. I went home that evening and found Amara in the kitchen, unpacking bags of Thai food. She looked at me when I walked in and did not say anything. She just opened her arms. I hugged her for a long time. I did not cry. I wanted to, but I did not. She asked if I was hungry. I said yes, even though I was not. We ate on the couch. She told me about her day, about a shoot she had done for a local bakery, about how the lighting was perfect and the croissants looked like art. I listened. I nodded. I tried to be present. After dinner, I called my brother. He answered on the fifth ring, sounding out of breath. He said he was walking back from the library. I did not believe him, but I did not call him out on it. I said, "Mom told me you were struggling." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I am fine. She is overreacting." I said, "Mike, I know what it looks like when you are not fine. I have been there." He said, "This is different." I said, "It always feels different." I asked him what was really going on. I asked him if he was okay. I asked him if there was something he needed to tell me but was too scared to say. He did not answer. I did not push. I told him I loved him. I told him I would always be there for him, no matter what. I told him that whatever he was going through, he did not have to go through it alone. When I hung up, I felt like I had done something right, even if I was not sure what. I did not go to work the next day. I called in sick, which I had not done in over a year, and I spent the morning cleaning my apartment. I dusted the bookshelf. I organized the kitchen cabinets. I swept the floor and mopped it, and then swept it again. Amara texted me around noon asking if I was okay. I told her I was taking a mental health day. She sent back a heart emoji and a photo of a cat she had seen on the street. I spent the afternoon thinking about Derek, about the coffee shop, about the way he had said kind of a jerk like it was nothing. I tried to imagine what his life looked like. He had a wife and a daughter and a job in logistics. He probably went to bed every night without thinking about what he did in middle school. He probably never thought about me at all. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to feel the fire I had been banking for 17 years. But all I felt was tired. That Saturday, I met Amara's parents. They were kind. Her father was a retired high school history teacher who told long stories about his students and laughed at his own punchlines. Her mother was a nurse who asked me direct questions and listened carefully to my answers, like she was taking a patient history. They asked me about my job. They asked me about my family. They asked me what I wanted out of life. I told them I wanted to keep building things that mattered. I told them I wanted to be the kind of person who showed up when it counted. I told them I was still figuring it out. Amara held my hand under the table. After dinner, her mother pulled me aside while Amara was helping her father load the dishwasher. She said, "Amara told me you ran into someone who hurt you a long time ago." I did not know what to say. She said, "I spent 30 years as a nurse. I have seen people carry injuries they stopped feeling years ago. But the body remembers. And the heart remembers too." She said, "You do not have to forgive him. But you do have to stop letting him live in your head rent-free." I thought about that for a long time. My brother called me the next week. He told me he had dropped out of 2 of his classes and was thinking about taking a semester off. He said he needed to figure things out. He asked me if I thought he was a failure. I said no. I think you are 19 years old and you are trying to find your way. That is not failure. That is just being alive. He laughed. It was the first time I had heard him laugh in months. I told him I would help him figure things out. I told him he could stay with me if he needed to, for a little while he got his head straight. He said he might take me up on that. I did not tell him about Derek. I did not tell him about the coffee shop or the river or the 17 years of anger I had been holding in my chest. But I thought about it. I thought about how easy it would be to pass that weight on to someone else, how natural it felt to hold on to pain like it was a gift you had been given. I decided I did not want to do that anymore. I started seeing a therapist the following month. It was not easy. The first few sessions were awkward and uncomfortable, and I spent most of them staring at the patterned rug on the floor and trying not to cry. But I kept going. Amara came with me to one session, the 4th one. The therapist asked her how she felt about the walls I had built around myself. She said she understood them. She said she wished I trusted her enough to let her see what was behind them. I said, "I am trying." She said, "I know." It took me 6 months to realize what I should have known all along. Closure was never going to come from Derek. It was never going to come from a single conversation or an apology or a moment of cathartic confrontation. Closure was something I had to build for myself, brick by deciding that my past did not have to be my present. I stopped checking the social media of people I used to know. I stopped rehearsing conversations that would never happen. I started waking up in the morning and asking myself what I wanted, not what I was afraid of. I did not become a different person. I just became more of the person I was already becoming. The last time I thought about Derek with anything close to anger was on a Tuesday afternoon, about 8 months after the coffee shop. I was walking home from the train station, and I passed a group of middle school kids waiting for the bus. One of them was standing apart from the others, quiet, looking at his phone, pretending not to notice that he was being excluded. I stopped walking for a second. I wanted to say something to him. I wanted to tell him that it gets better, but I knew he would not believe me. I did not believe anyone who told me that at his age. So I just kept walking.